would accept a motion to enter back into regular session.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We're now in open session. First item on the agenda is approved minutes of the closed session on December 8th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is discussion of possible action, authorize execution of commodity master agreement for electric supply, non-residential. Mr. Zuber.
Okay, so we've had a couple of meetings with Javier, and by we, I mean Jane and Kelsey and Alan and I. And then we also had, or the second of those meetings also included a gentleman named Tim Lawrence. That was on December 15th. Tim Lawrence, or Javier, suggested that we add Tim Lawrence to the mix because Tim Lawrence is the legal person for NRG, and there were some questions that Javier did not answer for us. The meeting on the 15th of December, these were my takeaways. They were going to add the language that we requested relating to FOIA to section 16. That was really the big one for Kelsey's perspective, and they did that. The second topic that I brought up related to section 5, because as I was reading it, it essentially said that, well, as I read it, it said if there is a new or modified tariff, law, order, rule, taxation, regulation, transmission rate, or change, blah, 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 which increases seller's cost, seller may allocate the increased cost to customer. And I thought, okay, if there's a new transmission rate and they can pass that along to the customer, what's the point of this? The explanation that I got, or that we got, was that wording was intended to mean, or is intended to mean, a utility defined transmission rate. In other words, that is if the transmission rate that would be charged whether or not you were in a aggregation agreement changed, they can pass that along. So my specific question was, okay, so if we were not in an aggregation agreement, we would get this raise. If we are in an aggregation agreement, we would get this raise. So it's like a regulatory transmission rate change, not a market rate transmission rate change.
It wouldn't make any difference.
Right, so it wouldn't make any difference, exactly. So it's not about market fluctuations, it's about a regulatory change or a,
Imposed.
a transmission rate change that is imposed on everyone, whether or not you're in an aggregation. That's how they explain it. That's,
Okay.
in straight English, that's not exactly how it's worded, but that's how they explained it as to what we mean. So take that for what it is. Then the other topic that I brought up was relating to my overall number 13 as default is defined, and then how that interacts with number 10 and number 2. So the way I was reading number 13, in that it says failure, little 5, little v, failure of a party to fulfill any of its obligations in this agreement, blah, blah, blah. Then going back to number 2, customers obligated to purchase and receive the contract quantity. So if you just read number 2 on its face, and then you read 13 little v, it says if you don't purchase the contract quantity, you are in default. So I suggested, why don't we add and then they both said, well, the way we intend for 13 to be is that it's it's a payment default situation, not a performance default situation. In other words, if you don't pay the money, then you're in default, not if you don't perform the purchase and receive of the contract quantity. So I thought, well, this is an easy fix. We put the word payment in between the word its and the word obligations.
Works for us.
And it said simply, this is rejected. Jade and Kelsey, correct me if I'm incorrect.
No, you're correct. And
Okay.
they also talked about how, we're not gonna be coming to the city over something like $300.
Right, and so that,
And
yes, so that, then
And
I
the
was gonna follow, so
consultant will work for
I'm
you.
stating what happened, factually correct. Basically, the way it was left with Javier and Tim is, and I've tried to think about how to articulate this ever since the meeting, but basically they're kinda saying, you're looking at this too closely, this is not really gonna happen.
But
It costs too much
Trust
for
me.
us
Change
to
it.
Oh, I hear
nitpick.
that.
Procedurally, it takes too much time and costs too much money for us to nitpick on these things. We're not gonna nitpick on these things. You're gonna save $124,000. Just trust us. And so, as I put in an email today, it's kind of just a gut feeling on the part of the council. I don't, whether you think for $120,000 versus just being open to the market, should we just do this and kind of take their word for it that we're reading too much into this, that they're not going to come back and say you're in default, you're supposed to buy 100, you've only bought 98, or you're supposed to buy 100, you've only bought 81. Are they gonna? They're saying they're not gonna do that because that's not how this works. That's not how the industry works. Again, they reiterated it costs too much money for us to do this. It takes too much time for us to nitpick over 3 or 5 or 10 units. And they said that's why we define material deviation as plus or minus 25. If you go minus 25, we're gonna have to charge you extra to get you up to basically a 75. And at that point, it's worth it to us.
Right.
But they were basically saying, as long as you're with, if you're at 80 or 83 or 90, it's not worth it to us.
Has our consumption been consistently above the required amount that they're looking for?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know that.
We don't know.
it looks like it. And what they said too, Direct Energy is one of the leading
Oh,
and more
yeah.
reputable companies. And before they would ever even come to the city, they get our consultant involved and they hammer through as much of it as they can before anything would ever come here. It's usually handled
Yeah, they
just
did
between
say,
the two of them. and
they did
don't
say
worry about
that,
us at all.
and they both independent, especially Javier said, they're not gonna nitpick you because they don't wanna risk their relationship with us. Like, we do we're an aggregation consultant, they'll come to us first because they don't wanna burn a bridge or ruin a relationship with Good Energy over a couple $100 with the city of Albany. They did say that.
So what does your gut tell you? So they sound reasonable. I mean, we could be being played, but look, they're just shooting straight
I
with us.
think the real issue is that there's probably a real good chance that energy's gonna be a whole lot higher than
Well,
that.
Oh, hey, I see.
yeah, I mean, that's
They're
speculation,
broadcasting.
obviously, but,
Everything's going
I
up.
mean, you would
11.5.
think, you would think that they would have this already, that the market would already be anticipating this, because presumably they know more about their own market than we do.
Yes.
But just a layman is gonna say, whenever all these AI plants start getting
Up
put in place, the cost of energy is gonna go way up. Now, is that gonna happen in the next 2 years, which is the contract term? Who knows, but if you think about it, are the rates more likely to go up or are they more likely to go down? Probably more likely to go up.
market refreshed, and
It
actually
went
the
down
price
pretty significantly.
is quite lower
From
right
like
now.
9.1 and change to 80.
In
or
this low time of the
88.
year,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not gonna do better than that, so
Yeah.
that was also kind of a bit of a blessing.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, it basically, they gave me the vibe of, you're reading too much into this, this is not how the industry works, just go with it.
You okay with that? I mean, it like,
I mean,
it didn't give you reservations. I mean, 'cause you've
I mean,
been involved with this
as
in the
as a
process.
person who reads contracts with a fine tooth comb, I don't understand if you mean payment obligations, why you just don't agree to
Say.
put payment obligations. But,
And they flat said, we reject this. We reject that change. Corporate
Yeah.
attorney.
and some element of that is probably, we can't go around making one-word changes to thousands of
Contracts.
contracts that we have out there.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. You know,
All right.
but we put, I mean, we did put our foot down on FOIA,
Mhm.
and we explained exactly why we were putting our foot down on FOIA, and they
They
went,
were amenable. to that.
yeah.
I'm ready to jump.
Questions, comments, or a motion?
I would make the motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Further discussion. Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Is there any further business to be had?
Christmas.
That is correct. And with that, Merry Christmas, everybody.
And to
Indeed.
you and your
Happy
family.
New Year.
Happy New
See
Year.
you in 26. I would accept a motion to adjourn.